Hello and happy Wednesday. Today on the Busy Bride podcast, we are welcoming Alex to talk about her wedding from last year. She had the most beautiful, high energy, fun, joyful wedding day ever, and I had the pleasure of photographing it. And we talk all about the details of the day and how, even though she didn't cry, she was so freaking happy and excited the whole entire time. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Busy Bride podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella Marie, and I created this podcast to help you research vendors and learn valuable advice as you plan the most special and true to you wedding day of your dreams. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Alex. Thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to chat about your wedding day, which was almost a year ago at the time of recording.
Yeah.
And I photographed it, and it was amazing and full of color and happiness. So why don't you start off just by introducing yourself, who you are, where you got married, and how long you've been married for.
I'm Alex Fink. I've been married for almost a year. We got married on August 19th, 2023. We got married at the Manor House at Prophecy Creek in Ambler.
It was beautiful, and I loved it.
Thank you.
So you got married less than a year ago. How long were you engaged for before you got married?
So we got engaged January 15th, 2023 or 2022. So we were engaged for about a year and a half.
Did you like that length in regards to planning and also wanting to be married?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, when we got engaged, I was like, I don't even want to be married. Like, now that I am, I love it. But like, I just want to be engaged. I just want an engagement ring, and then I'll be happy. And then as soon as we got married, engaged, I was like, I need to be married now. So I think the amount of time was shorter than I actually thought, and a lot of things were different than I thought I wanted my wedding to be. But I think a year and a half was perfect. I wasn't stressed really at all. I think stuff would pop up along the way. Like I would email you with a lot of questions, my other vendors, but I wasn't stressed in terms of time. I wasn't stressed in terms of, really anything that went into wedding planning. So I think a year and a half was great.
That's awesome. And it's great to hear that you weren't stressed even though things ended up changing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that can be like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
So what changed? Like, was there your vision for the day changed or just details along the way?
I don't know, like growing up and even in my early 20s, I was, said my wedding is going to be less than 100 people. And it was like almost 200 people. And I wanted, in the city, I wanted something like super minimal, which was not exactly what I ended up doing. And honestly, this is going to sound weird. I think it was from being in weddings. Like I saw my friends get married, and they had a ton of people around them. And it was just like an amazing experience for them. And then also in a weird way, like just looking at wedding vendors on Instagram. Once I got engaged, I followed so many people that were like getting married or planning their own weddings and like wedding vendors and planners. So I think from that, it totally changed. And I mean, I think I always knew I wanted like a larger bridal party, and that stuck to like the same. We had, 8 people on both sides. But I think, my husband really wanted a larger wedding. And so we kind of moved towards that. And I'm happy that's, where we went.
Amazing. So why don't you describe your wedding day? Just like, yeah, I guess start with like the vibes maybe, but just whoever it takes you, just kind of describe the day, how it was.
So I didn't sleep the night before. And I know that everyone says that, but I truly had 2 hours of sleep. Like I went to bed at 11, woke up at 1. And I was I wasn't even like nervous. I was just so excited. And my poor husband, I was like, we're not going to do like the traditional thing where you sleep apart. Like we're going to sleep at our house with our dog. And my husband was up the entire time with me. And we have a guest room. I ended up trying to go in there. It didn't work. So finally at like 5 a.m. I drove to my parents' house, which is like 5 minutes away. And I was like, Mom, wake up. Like I need you. Like, let's just get the day started. I mean, the vibe was how I really wanted it to be through my entire wedding, like no stress. I wanted it to just be like a beautiful, exciting day. And I feel like that was just what happened. And I think it's funny, like everyone always says, stuff is gonna go wrong at your wedding. I don't think anything. I mean, I didn't know, so I if it did, like I had no idea. So I think I was just so happy the entire day. I wasn't even tired. Like I thought I was gonna be exhausted. I thought I was gonna look exhausted. I didn't. And I didn't feel exhausted. So I think that was my number one concern. That's the only thing I was worried about. And then after I was there at my parents' house for 2 hours and all my bridesmaids started coming, I just, it wasn't like autopilot, but I was just, you know, so happy I didn't feel tired.
The adrenaline took over.
Yeah. Um, and then I think another thing that Mike and I did, my husband, that was not traditional is like, we were talking the entire day. Like, I was texting him, we were calling. He was giving me updates. He, I think when we're apart, he like doesn't know what to do sometimes. So he, especially on a day where like he's a little bit stressed, he kept calling me. He was like, "How's it going?" So it was just, we were talking the entire day. And I think the getting ready process for me was also so fun because, I knew my hair and my makeup people for, my makeup person I've known for 5 years, my hair person I've known for 10. So it was more, intimate at my house, and we were at my childhood home and with people that I knew. So it was great. My dad was there. My sister's boyfriend was there. My bridesmaid's boyfriend were there. So it was just more of like not like a party, but it was more of like a get together rather than like, we're getting ready for Alex's wedding, which is kind of how I wanted it to feel. And, it just felt like it was, not just my wedding day, but it was just like a get together, if that makes sense.
Totally. And as from the perspective of a photographer, it definitely felt that way too. Like everybody was just kind of like happy. It was a very lighthearted feel to the day. It wasn't like it was, serious because it's a wedding day, but it wasn't like stone face serious.
Yeah.
Everybody was just kind of like chill and happy and like very excited to be part of the day. And I will also want to touch on the fact that, at least from the perspective of a photographer, you were so excited for like every part of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that might have added to like the joy of the day. You're so excited for the first look. You're so excited to be married. You're so excited to see your dog on the day of, to enter the reception. Like there was just excitement upon excitement, which is how it should be because it's your wedding day.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to like put on a mask and be like, I'm like gonna be an adult about this and not show my excitement. Like, no, be excited. And I think that was awesome. And even though you and Mike were talking the other day, you still had a first look, and it was still really cool to like then see each other and then be together before the ceremony.
Yeah, and it's funny, like Mike, he didn't see my wedding dress before, but he was like, I knew, like he knows me and he knows what I like to wear, so he like knew exactly what it was gonna look like. And so he, it was funny. Like at the first look, I think we were both really excited. But I obviously, like you took the pictures, I was very, very excited.
Yeah, and you guys did it, so you're like still, alone, like so that when you were talking, nobody could hear you, but there are people in the wedding party watching from like in the back, and so they could see you guys see each other for the first time, and that was pretty cool too. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your flowers for the wedding day and just like the design of the day too? Because your details that I did at the beginning are some of my favorite detail pictures I've ever done, just because everything was so pretty together.
Yeah, it's funny. So first of all, like when I was planning, and Becky, who's the florist, was my first meeting, and I was like, I want all these colors. Like this is what my wedding color palette is. And then as I was planning, I was like, I actually kind of want like more blue and white. And I called her and she was like, no, like not in like a mean way, like, cause we had like a good friendly, like back and forth. And she was like, I know how excited you were for this. Like, I really want you to try to stick with this. Like, I just don't think you should do blue and white. And I'm so glad she said that. Like, she obviously knows best. She's amazing. But that's the first thing I knew I wanted was like a ton of flowers. And I know people are like so the opposite, and it was just my favorite part of the wedding. I think, we were talking before, and like everyone, even people I don't know, were like, your flowers were amazing. And so that was just one of the things that like I really loved. And I think, I got my inspiration on Instagram. I saw what I really liked and I just planned around that. And I think that, one of the things I wanted was I went back and I looked at my mom's wedding pictures and my grandmother's, and they all had like these cascading bouquets. And that was one of the things that I like. Becky's the best. I added it super late and she was able to make it happen. So I was like really excited about that because it was sentimental between like my mom and my grandma and I. Um, but I just wanted, it to be like a super warm kind of, floral arrangements. And then, but my theme in theory, and people are like, what is this? I wanted it to be like more like a coastal grandma chic kind of theme. So like the blues and the whites, was, more what I was going for, but the color obviously like popped out a lot.
Yeah, so like the blues and the whites were like on the invitations
Yeah.
and your bridesmaids dresses, but then the flowers were just like lots of color, like
Yeah.
so much bright color. But it was all very summery. Like it just somehow all worked together so well. And also I wanted to say Becky is from Ram Floral and she's awesome, and I actually talked to her on the podcast. So you want great flowers, go listen to that. But would you say, as somebody who really wanted flowers, that using a florist like Becky, who kind of like designed everything for you, was that helpful? Or like, did you have input? Like, what was that like?
I mean, I didn't want input. I'm sure if like I didn't want to give any input. I'm sure that if I was like, "Hey, can I tell you what I want?" she would have listened because she's amazing. But no, like it was extremely helpful. I was like, "You can do whatever you want, and like go for it. I trust you 100%." And I think it probably helped that she worked at the Manor House a lot, like, and she was familiar with the other vendors I was using. But I was really just like, "You can do whatever you want, and I'll love it."
I love that so much. Trust the professional.
Yeah, I think that was my number one thing was like I trusted every vendor that I had, and I was like, I will do whatever you need, and I will do whatever you want. And I think that led to my like low stress level.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. If you could just like release control over things, then it's like
Yeah,
you're just there and you're just getting married and celebrating.
exactly.
Do you want to talk about your venue, the Manor House at Prophecy Creek? Because it's a pretty cool venue and a little unique with the split level of reception.
Yeah. So we only saw like three venues. And I honestly, like I said, I thought I was gonna want to go in the city, and then I realized that just like having a big wedding with parking, like I'm a huge parking person when I go places, not weddings, but like in general. And I was like, I can't imagine. So I wanted it to not be easy for my guests, but I wanted them to like not have to worry about parking and leaving their cars there if they needed to. So I think that, that was one of the things I loved about there was just like it's a beautiful venue and it's just like convenient for my parents and my husband's grandparents. And the split level and the outdoor was like one of the parts I actually really liked. Like I like the split level. It's funny. My husband was like, I don't really know if I like the split level as much as the other venues. And then I kind of explained it to him. Like I liked that the bridal party was up there. I liked that our dancing was up there. Um, and I liked because from the pictures that you took, like the first dance, I thought it was, the pictures are amazing. Seeing Mike and I on like the top level, and then seeing everyone, like all of our guests on the bottom level. I actually love that. Um, and so it wasn't, we had a big enough bridal party and that we could fit them all up there. And I think it just made for a better layout. I think that the fact that we were able to have, since it's like a tented location, the fact that we were able to have, the tent flaps open was amazing because the weather was perfect. That was one of the things I was like really hopeful for, even though it was August and they were like, it's probably not going to happen. Like since it was 80 degrees, it worked out really well. I love the layout. They have, the bottom bar and the top bar. I actually thought I wasn't going to use the top bar as much, but everyone used that. So it's just like a super convenient kind of layout. The bridal suites are amazing. So the entire, yeah, the entire, venue is great. And I think one of the things I really liked about it was where the bridal suite is, it like looks out to the parking lot. So I could see all of my guests coming. So I was just like looking through the windows the whole time. No one could see me, which was also great. But it was like, that's like one of the things from my wedding I remember, like so very vividly still, is like watching all my guests and like the people that I love come, which was like an amazing experience.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I honestly didn't know that the bridal suite opened up to the parking lot. I didn't spend much time in the bridal suite because you got ready at your parents'
Yeah.
house. And by the time you got up there, it was time for me to do like detailed photos of the ceremony and everything set up for the reception. So you were just kind of chilling in there with your wedding party.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you're able to do that and see everybody coming in. I love that so much. And then with the split level, just like the whole setup for the reception, or I guess the ceremony, cocktail, or and reception, all of that. It was kind of cool the way it flowed up. So like your ceremony is outside, kind of in the backyard,
Mm-hmm.
and it was such a beautiful day. So that was amazing. And then it kind of flowed to the outdoor area outside of the venue, up the hill a little bit, and then it flowed into the bottom level of the venue for dinner, which is where all the guests were. And then you and your husband and the wedding party were up top. So it was kind of cool that you guys, like, I don't know, the king and queen of the day, like above everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then everybody then went upstairs for the dancing, the reception after dinner. So it was like a journey all in one direction. You weren't kind of like all over the place. It made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was pretty cool. It was a different way to have it set up. And also that meant that you guys got to eat in peace too, which is great.
And we actually did get to eat. Like, oh, like I think I ate my entire meal. Like I did not like. I'm not like I'm typically when I'm like excited and stressed, I don't really eat that much. But I wasn't stressed, and I felt like Mike and I actually had time to sit at the table and eat, which was nice.
That's amazing, and that's huge because you're doing so much on wedding day. You need to replenish.
Yeah.
Okay, and then another thing I loved about your wedding day was how you included your dog. Can you talk all about that, please?
Yeah, I think so. For anyone that like knows me, like we're Mike and I are obsessed with our dog. Her name's Kuma. Um, and I think one of the things from my Instagram research that I saw was like people were incorporating their dog in like a couple of different ways, and I just chose to do all of the ways. I was like, oh, you have her on your welcome sign, great. Oh, you have her on your napkins, great. I'm like, I'm gonna do all of the above. And I think I like went very crazy on Etsy. Like Etsy was my best friend. I think that I like funded Etsy for a while. I bought so much Kuma themed stuff. And so like our drink sign, we had like stirs, our napkins, like pretty much everything had her face on it. Our cake topper, which I was obsessed with. And obviously she was in the wedding. I do think like she was a little nervous, and our dog sitter Leanne was there, and she's amazing. Um, and it was her first wedding that she had a dog with her. Like she's never done that before, and she was amazing. She did like I wasn't. That's probably one of the things I would have been stressed about. And Leanne was like, she kept me updated. She was like so communicative the whole entire day. Um, and so I was just super happy. I wasn't, typically I'm like a crazy dog mom, and I'm sure that you understand where I'm coming from. Like I would typically like, where's Kuma? What's she doing? And like I didn't feel like I had to do that. But yeah, Kuma was great. She was the only thing, and I don't know if you remember this, she was eating grass the entire ceremony. And I was just like, I was just staring at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, stop eating grass. Like she was not interested in Mike and I at all. Like she did not care. She was excited to see us when she like came into the bridal suite, but beyond that, she was just like, I'm gonna stay on this grass. I'm gonna eat it this entire ceremony. And so, but yeah, I mean, she was like the number one wedding person. She was in our, I don't know if it's in the pictures, but she was in our save the date. Like Mike photoshopped her. We had this like beautiful watercolor save the date of the venue, and then Mike photoshopped her face inside of it. So it was like, find Kuma on the save the date. So yeah, wedding was very Kuma themed.
I love that so much. Okay, and also, so my boyfriend and I got a dog after your wedding. So I loved all of that
Oh,
stuff because I am a big dog person in general. I grew up with dogs, and so seeing all that stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, this is all amazing. I love this so much. Now that I have a dog, I plan on doing the same thing. I want a dog everywhere in the wedding because they're such a big part of your relationship. Like they're always there at your home. Like they're just I mean, we're on video right now talking, and he just walked in the background there.
yeah.
So it's so cool that you can include your pup in your wedding day. I loved that Kuma had like a little flower necklace that she wore when she walked down the aisle. And we got to get some pictures with her before the wedding, which is cool.
I just ordered one. I framed it.
Let's go. Yes.
My
Okay.
favorite picture. Even though like I don't know, I think so when I made her an Instagram and I would take pictures of her like all day, every day. And I think that she doesn't like pictures anymore, so she doesn't make like full eye contact with the camera anymore unless I'm like Kuma, Kuma, Kuma. And so I felt like she was being such a diva. But beyond that, like the pictures with her are so cute and she's just like I just like love her.
She is so cute. I'm so glad that you love those pictures. But yeah, definitely love all of the extra Kuma stuff too, like drinks on Kuma, the sign at the bar, and the stirs and the napkins and everything. Big fan. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. What other party? I've had another party run day I wanted to talk about. Um, you had a live band instead of a DJ.
Mhm.
Thoughts on that? Did you love it?
I did. So I think my husband, kind of how my husband and I met was, well, we went to high school together, but then I saw his band play, 7 years ago. And he really loves, he was in a band and he loves live music. And I never even thought I was going to have a DJ. Like I always wanted a live band as well. One of my friends' weddings we went to had this like amazing live band. And after, like that was September 2019. So I was like, I'm going to have a live band. How I found them was like in my Instagram stalking. I was like, I am going to, find the band that I am like obsessed with and, budget more for a band versus like other things. Because it was something that was important, like to me, but also like way more important to my husband. Um, and again, like people still talk about our like flowers. People still are like, your band was amazing. And so that was one of the things that I also wanted from it. And the guy Jeff who runs the Blue Label band, we talked to him a bunch of times and he like really curated like what we wanted. And I think one of the things we were nervous about was like I really wanted like our first dance, and then my first dance with my dad to like be the songs that were actually the songs. And I was nervous like they were gonna be like, no, but they were so cool about it and they were so like amazing. And I one of the things that I also like had nightmares about was my like timing going down the aisle getting messed up. And I know they're professionals and they were so amazing, but that was like the only thing I was nervous about. And because I've been to weddings where it hasn't been like 100%, and they were just amazing, and I didn't even have to like think about it. And they played like all the songs that we wanted them to, so it was just great.
That's awesome. I feel like that's the biggest thing I hear if couples aren't happy with their band or DJ is that they didn't get the songs played that they really want played. So
Yeah.
that's great that that happened, and also that they took care of everything and they're professionals. They made everything happen without you worrying. That's
Yeah.
the best thing you could ever ask for. Okay. So zooming out from your wedding day, is there anything that like stood out to you that you didn't think would stand out to you so much?
I think so. I was thinking about this, and I probably mentioned it a lot. I just thought I was gonna cry, and I thought I was gonna be so nervous. I cry at every wedding. I cry at like weddings of people that I don't really know that well, that I'm like a plus one at. I cry at like engagement videos. I cry at like basically everything. And the only time I thought I was gonna cry when I was walking down the aisle, I was like going down the steps to go walk down the aisle, and I was like, "Don't cry." And I kind of wish I let myself do it, but I was so surprised I didn't cry. My friends are all big criers, and I think like maybe two of them cried. I think they were probably feeding off my non-crying energy, but I the last three weddings I've been in, I've been at the altar crying. Like I am like I can't hold it in. Like I just will stand there next to the bride and cry, even though like she's doing her vows. Like I just can't stop it. So I was surprised that I didn't cry. I was also surprised that Mike didn't cry. The only person that cried that I know of is like my dad, and he cried like during our first. And well, I guess I cried a little bit during the speeches. Like my brother-in-law and my sister and my dad, but like I thought I was gonna cry the entire time going down the aisle, the entire time doing my vows. So I that was my biggest like I was surprised I didn't do that kind of moment. But I think everything else I was like I had planned for, and I was pretty much like on par with what I thought.
Yeah, and I think it's like that can be something I hear a lot of couples say like, "Oh, I hope I cry," or "I hope my partner cries and I walk down the aisle," or something like that. And there's so many emotions that run through you on a
Yeah.
wedding day, so many things going through your brain that like it's okay if you don't cry,
Yeah.
because it sometimes takes like it takes time to process everything that's going on. Like, you can be in the moment getting married, and then like 2 days later, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm married. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
Like
Did
Mike and
you?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you have that like after the wedding where you're like, what?
I kind of. I mean, I just think we were really happy. Like we like went down the shore right after the wedding and it was just super nice. Like we don't typically get to like do things like go on vacation alone. So it was really nice to have that time. I think before the wedding, like we had gone to a concert. Um, we were gonna have our first dance song be a song by the band Bright Eyes, and we saw them in concert, and Mike and I were like sobbing, and so I was like, oh my gosh, this wedding day is gonna be like wild, like we're gonna cry the entire time, and I think we might have like gotten out the crying a year before the wedding, but yeah, it wasn't. I mean, no, I think Mike, after we got married, is like obsessed with his wedding band. I mean, I was wearing an engagement ring for like a year and a half before the wedding, but once he started like wearing the engagement or his wedding band, he's like, I love this. Like, I'm never like taking it off. I'm like, well, please don't. But also like, I just remember the first like couple months after we got married, he just like kept being like, look at my wedding band, and I was like, oh. And it's so not like him. So I was like, this is great.
I love that so much. So sweet. And it's true. Like I was just photographing a wedding this past weekend, and the groom kept making comments like, "Wow, like washing your hands with the ring on, it's kind of weird." And the
Yeah.
bride's like, "You get used to it."
I know
So,
it's so weird now. I don't even feel them on my finger anymore. So I think
yeah.
like for him it was really weird.
Yes, totally. And also, girls, I feel like tend to wear rings more often
Yeah.
in general. But yeah, it's funny to hear the changes in and how your hand feels with the ring on it. Okay. Is there um like a vendor that had a huge impact on your wedding day, either in the planning process or day of? I know you said your band was like huge in making sure everything was um played, and that everything was played on time with walking down the aisle, and that Becky was like awesome with planning the florals. Was there any other vendor that you were like, dang, this actually did make a big impact in the day in a good way?
Yeah, I think so. It's like a combo kind of like obviously you were amazing because you did my first. I mean, not only you not like you were giving me advice the entire way, but you like made the timeline. Like I am not a type A person. I don't care about timelines, but that timeline for my wedding day, I just like like I don't know how people function without them on their wedding days. Like I've been in weddings before where they don't have a timeline and it's so stressful for the bride and everyone involved. Like it's just I don't know how people function on their wedding day without it. So like you, number one, huge impact. And I think Becky sat down with me and was like, you need to hire a day of coordinator. Like you have to. And so I think, you know, the company we used, Musa and the girl Caroline, that was our wedding planner, like, or the day of coordinator was amazing. Like she felt like she was like my friend, first of all. Like from the minute I met her for like, I known her for like 2 days. Like she was so amazing. And like even all my bridesmaids were like, she is just the best. Like I didn't know if anything went wrong. I wasn't, I wasn't looking out for it, but even if something did, like I wouldn't have known because she was just beyond great. Like she went above and beyond with like a multiple different things. When I was nervous about stuff like walking down the aisle or like bridesmaid timing, like she was there. And so I would say, everyone had a big impact, but I would say like based on the things I was stressed about, like you and the day of coordinator just were like the biggest help and like made my life so much easier.
I'm so glad. And yes, Musa and Caroline with Musa, they're all amazing. I've worked with them a couple times, and just having somebody there to, again, take care of things in case they were to go wrong, but also just to make sure everything goes along to plan, and getting guests from one place to another
Yeah.
is like such a small thing but makes such a big difference. So I'm glad that she helped with everything there. I think you're gonna say
I
something.
just felt like when you could plan so much for your wedding, like I did a pretty good job planning. I'm not a very good planner. Like I'm not organized. Like I felt like I did a pretty good job. And there was just things I didn't even think about that she was just like thought about or knew about them immediately. And I was like, oh, wow. Like I don't know how I would have survived without her.
Well, yeah, because it's your first time planning a wedding. Like,
Yeah.
and it's a huge event. So there's a lot of little details that just you might not think of, even if you're like the best planner there is. So
Yeah.
it's great to have other minds to just be like, what about this? What about this?
Yeah, I know. One of my bridesmaids was like that too. Shout out Sarah. She she planned her own wedding, and so she was like my like number. If I had to say like who's the most important person that beyond my vendors was like her. She was just so helpful, and like she planned her entire wedding, which I did not do. So she would give me like a ton of advice, and I the day of she was like I'll do a lot of stuff. Like she wanted to help be the day of coordinator. I was like absolutely not. Like you're a bridesmaid. Like please don't do that. So she, as amazing as she would have been, like I wanted her to have a good time.
Shout out Sarah, she's the best. I also photographed her wedding, so she's amazing. It was cool to have her there too. I loved having people that I know in the wedding party. That was really cool for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so wrapping things up. You're now a married woman. You've been through the wedding planning process, the wedding day. Do you have a tip for couples planning their wedding for like the wedding planning part or for like the wedding day part, the marriage part? Any sort of tip?
I would say for the planning part, find what you like and like be able to compromise on some things, but this is probably a tip for grooms, like do what your bride wants in most cases. I would say I had the luxury of like a very easygoing groom in some aspects. In other aspects, like he wanted all the Kuma stuff. But pretty much like we compromised on a ton of things and it was amazing. And I would do I added a lot of things for him. But I would say book your vendors that you love like early, so then they can start planning and you can start planning and it's off your plate. I would say that was my number one thing is like I booked you immediately. I booked my hair and my makeup immediately. Like I really had everything booked like over a year out. So that was, I mean, if you can do that, like that is my number one suggestion because I wasn't stressed about anything. There was so much time to plan. I remember all the calls I kept having were like, we can talk about it later. Like there's a lot of time. And that is like one of the, like, it was just so calming for me. I would say the day of, two pieces of advice. One, get a day of coordinator if you can. It's amazing. I think the only thing that I wish I would have done differently is booked it sooner. Like I booked it maybe a month before my wedding. Typically you should do it like 3 months for a day of coordinator. So I wish that I had that a little bit. But that, I'm so glad I booked it. And then, I think for me, in terms of like the people I was like surrounding myself by, I had like an amazing group of bridesmaids. Mike had like an amazing, groomsmen group. But for my bridesmaids specifically, like my bridal party was just so supportive and it wasn't, I've been in weddings where like, there's one stressor and like it's someone in the wedding party and I didn't have that. And I think all of my friends in the bridal party like got along so well and they were just like so supportive of each other. Like every time someone would get their hair and makeup done, they're like, you look amazing. And it was just so great. And like that was, like I just felt so happy about that. And then marriage advice. I think for me is compromise isn't like the word I love to use, but I think like Mike and I are so different. Like I'm really outgoing, Mike is quiet and he, does like a lot of like things on his own, which is amazing. And I think continue to do the things that you love, but like separately, like don't, just spend every single second with your significant other, even though if they're amazing, I'm sure. But, I think for Mike and I, we have such a healthy balance of like, Mike will, play video games and I'll, go on a walk with my friends or like, something like that where we can like take time apart and then come back and like be happier together since we had, that time apart is really important.
Absolutely. I love all of that advice. And I've talked to coordinators and planners before, so definitely agree with the 3 months out advice. Just because there's so many things that happen 3 months out from your wedding, like little teeny tiny details that you can't do until then. And yeah, your wedding party group, I feel like they were all very much there, like for you guys. Like it wasn't like they were treating you guys as the main characters, which is how, I feel like it should be because you were the main characters that day. But they were so supportive of you and just there for you, happy for you. And it was very evident that was the case. So I love all of that. And it was so great to relive the wedding date with you.
I know I want to do it all the time. Like maybe we can do this once a year.
I'm so down.
I'm never gonna stop talking about my wedding, even though it's been like 8 years.
That's when you know you had a great wedding. When you married the right person, you had the best people around you, and you had the most spectacular day.
Yeah.
Love that so much. So thanks so much for being on the show. It was so great talking to you. And yeah, it was lovely.
Thank you.
That was such a good conversation. I love talking to Alex so much. I just love reliving wedding days, and Alex is awesome, her husband's awesome, and their wedding day was awesome. So being able to see her perspective of things from the planning side and the wedding day itself was really cool. Especially how the florist Ram Floral, how they were able to just really design the day for them, and how that the floral aspect of the day really stood out to the guests and to the bride herself, Alex. And how her coordinators were able to help, even though it was a last minute decision to have them come, and then also having the photography timeline to just guide the day along. I'm really glad that helped her, and I'm really hope that her stories and advice can help future couples plan their wedding if you're listening to this and you're planning your wedding. So I hope you loved this episode. I hope you learned something, and I hope you feel less alone in the planning process. If you love this episode, please give this a follow so you can hear more episodes like this. You can hear more brides recapping their wedding day. And if you have a friend getting married, feel free to send this episode to them too. I would love that so much. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time. Now go hug your person, and I will see you next Wednesday.